The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a massive new obsession.
I mean, I remember exactly where I was when this whole thing exploded. It was literally everywhere.
Right. Welcome to Starscope Report. If you are joining us, we are here to uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and those viral influencer scandals that just take over your feed.
Yeah, from, red carpet surprises to massive social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we're doing a massive deep dive into a headline that basically broke the internet. Tyra Banks just sued Netflix, and here is exactly what happened.
It is wild, and honestly, we've got a huge stack of sources to get through today.
We really do. We are pulling from TMZ reports, some incredible media coverage from Rolling Stone, a really fascinating article from the Fordham Law Journal, and of course, the actual 90-page federal complaint itself.
90 pages. I mean, that is not a casual little lawsuit. That is a war.
Exactly. Our mission today is to figure out how a project that was pitched to Tyra as this thoughtful celebration of a massive reality TV legacy turned into a multi-million-dollar legal battle over documentary ethics, defamation, and the terrifying power of the editing room.
Because what's fascinating here is that this sits right at the intersection of, pop culture nostalgia and really high-stakes media law.
It totally does. So let's set the scene for you. Picture this. It's February 2026. Netflix drops this highly anticipated docuseries called Reality Check, Inside America's Next Top Model.
Oh, I remember. The hype was unreal.
Right. And instantly, the internet absolutely explodes. Viewers are outraged. Social media is on fire. And Tyra Banks, the iconic creator of the whole franchise, is suddenly public enemy number one.
Yeah, the backlash was, it was visceral. It was immediate. It wasn't just a mild critique of early 2000s television. This documentary felt like a targeted detonation.
It really did. Directed by Moore Lauschie and Daniel Sivan, Reality Check basically took every single skeleton in the top model closet and just, put them on a high-definition runway.
And they didn't just show the old clips, right? They really weaponized the cultural shift between 2004 and 2026. Rolling Stone had this great breakdown of the what they called the toxic takeaways.
Yeah, the toxic takeaways. Because things that were considered just standard reality TV drama 20 years ago are viewed as deeply abusive today.
Absolutely. They honed in on cycle 6, where contestants Danny Evans and Joanie Sprague were heavily pressured into getting invasive dental surgery.
Which is just crazy to watch now. Or cycle 8 with Dionne Walters.
Yeah.
Her own mother had been paralyzed by gun violence, and they literally asked her to pose as a victim in a crime scene photo shoot.
Which is so incredibly dark. And of course, the doc brought up the race-swapping photo shoots involving blackface.
Right, which were always controversial. But honestly, none of those things were the true catalyst for this lawsuit. The absolute most damaging claim, the one that set the entire internet ablaze, involved a Cycle 2 contestant named Shandi Sullivan.
Shandi. Yeah, this is the epicenter of the whole controversy.
It really is. So back in 2004, there was an incident during filming in Milan. The original show portrayed it as this, drink and cheating scandal.
Right. The narrative back then was that Shandi had a boyfriend at home. She got heavily intoxicated and had this, consensual but regrettable encounter with a male model.
Exactly. But in the Netflix docuseries, Shandi reframes that entire night. She states on camera that she was blacked out, she didn't feel it happening, and she explicitly characterizes it as a sexual assault.
Which is a massive, massive revelation. And the documentary doesn't just let that sit there. The way they edited it, they strongly imply that Tyra Banks knew about the assault in real time.
Yeah, that she knew, did absolutely nothing to stop it, and then ruthlessly exploited a young woman's trauma for ratings.
And the real-world consequences for Tyra were swift. I mean, people were furious.
They were brutal. Tyra has this ice cream business based in Sydney called Smize and Dream. Practically overnight, it gets completely review bombed by angry viewers.
Oh, wow, really? Her ice cream company.
Yeah, it dropped from a stellar 4.6 rating down to a 3.6 just instantly. The public court of opinion moved incredibly fast.
Well, you can see why, right? When a polished documentary tells you a powerful producer covered up an assault, the audience is naturally going to react with fury. Tyra was instantly cemented as the ultimate reality TV villain.
But wait, I have to push back on something here. Tyra Banks is the queen of reality TV. She basically created the modern competition format. She knows better than anyone exactly how the edit works.
That's true. She's a total veteran.
Right, so how on earth did someone of her caliber get completely blindsided by a documentary crew?
That is the multi-million-dollar question, and the 90-page complaint actually provides a fascinating answer. But honestly, wait till you hear what came next, because how they lured her in is insane.
Oh, totally. If you are loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed, because we have got even crazier stories ahead in this episode.
So getting back to it, the lawsuit details how she got involved. This wasn't Tyra being naive. It was a highly orchestrated pitch that preyed on her desire to, actually own her past mistakes.
Which makes sense. I mean, back in 2020, during the pandemic, when everyone was binge-watching old shows, she literally tweeted acknowledging that there were, quote, really off choices made on the show.
Yeah, she wasn't hiding from it. And the lawsuit alleges the producers actively capitalized on that vulnerability. They sent her team a pitch deck for a project with the working title On Top.
On top. Sounds very celebratory.
Exactly. They promised her in writing that it would be a thoughtful, in-depth reflection. They explicitly assured her team it would not be a takedown piece.
So based on those promises, she sits down for a grueling 3.5-hour interview. 3.5 hours of being incredibly candid, taking accountability, talking about the show's complexities.
But then the lawsuit reveals this massive hidden twist. The producers allegedly concealed the fact that former top model judges Nigel Barker, Miss J, and Jay Manuel were actually paid consultants on the docuseries.
Wait, they helped conceive the whole project behind her back?
Yep. And Jay Manuel reportedly held a long-standing public grudge over his contract not being renewed years ago.
Oh, wow. That changes everything.
It does, because documentaries rely entirely on trust. When a subject sits in that chair, they need to know who is shaping their narrative. By allegedly hiding the involvement of people with known grievances, the producers fundamentally changed the playing field. Tyra claims she was deprived of the ability to make an informed decision.
And the lawsuit systematically dismantles other claims made by these hidden consultants, too. Like, remember the rumor that Tyra abandoned Miss J after he suffered a stroke in 2022?
Oh yeah, the documentary made her look so cold, like she just discarded him.
Well, Tyra's lawsuit literally brings the receipts to court. It details text messages showing she desperately tried to visit him, but she was living in Australia at the time.
Right, which makes visiting a little difficult.
Exactly. And it references a delayed apology text from Miss J's own family for not updating her sooner. And here's a kicker. It even points to warm holiday voice notes they exchanged as recently as Christmas 2025.
That is insane. It just highlights this meticulous level of record-keeping by Tyra's legal team. They aren't just putting out a PR statement, they are presenting a verifiable paper trail.
Yeah, to counter the emotional narrative constructed by the documentary. But the core of this lawsuit, the real legal battleground, isn't just about the hidden consultants. It is about the specific mechanics of the editing room.
Which is where things get really, really shady.
And later in the episode, we will talk about the shocking trademark twist nobody saw coming. But first, I want to bring you, the listener, into that editing room. Because this is where 210 minutes of raw interview footage was surgically whittled down to just 16 minutes of screen time.
16 minutes out of 3.5 hours. That is a lot of material left on the floor.
Exactly. And the lawsuit breaks down what they are calling a deliberate smear campaign. Let's look at the manufactured cliffhanger at the end of episode 1.
This is a textbook example of how omission creates a totally new defamatory context. According to the complaint, the producers had already interviewed Shandi. They knew she was now calling the Milan incident an assault.
Right.
But they deliberately withheld that crucial piece of information from Tyra during her interview.
Just imagine that. You sit down to defend your life's work. Instead of the producer saying, hey, Tyra, Shandi is now saying this was an assault. What is your response? They ask this incredibly vague question. They just say, do you remember the story with Shandi?
And Tyra, obviously thinking they mean the cheating scandal that aired on TV for millions of people, nods affirmatively and says, I do remember her story.
But what did the producers do? The lawsuit claims they surgically cut the affirmative nod completely out of the footage. They end the episode on her looking up, hesitating, making her look incredibly evasive.
They engineered an implication. The viewer is left with this devastating impression that Tyra covered up a sexual assault and then pretended she couldn't even remember the victim's name. It is a masterful, if allegedly deceptive, piece of editing.
It's totally deceptive. It's like taking a video of someone saying, I hate cancer, cutting out the word cancer and broadcasting to the world that they just said, I hate. It's not brevity, it's actively creating a false reality.
And they did it again in episode 2. The docuseries made it look like Tyra purposely initiated a conversation about cheating with Shandi to manipulate her into confessing on camera.
Right. But the lawsuit states that the raw, unedited footage from 2004 clearly shows Shandi approaching Tyra and asking about cheating first.
Exactly. And then the complaint points out this very specific visual juxtaposition. They put Tyra's official title, creator and executive producer, in bold letters on the screen while playing an isolated soundbite of her saying, "Production is not my territory."
Which obviously makes her look like a massive hypocrite. You can't be the executive producer and say, production isn't your territory.
But that is exactly the nuance her legal team argues was stripped away. She was accurately distinguishing her creative role casting, fashion, branding from the day-to-day physical camera operations on the ground in Milan.
Yeah, she wasn't directing the cameraman in the apartment that night.
Right. But by stripping away the explanation of how physical TV production works, the documentary makes it seem like she's just dodging responsibility for a crime.
And to prove she didn't just ignore misconduct, the complaint drops a massive piece of counter-evidence. It details another unnamed incident during the show's run where a crew member was reported for inappropriate sexual conduct.
Wait, really? What happened?
When Tyra found out, she immediately shut down production. She forced the entire cast and crew into mandatory third-party sexual harassment training before anyone was allowed to pick up a camera again.
Oh, wow. That does not sound like someone who ignores assault for ratings.
Not at all. Which brings us to the strategic legal counterstrike. Filing a 90-page federal lawsuit like this is not just about clearing your name. It's about navigating some of the most complex media law in the United States.
Absolutely. And if you want to keep up with all these crazy legal battles in Hollywood, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next.
So let's break down the mechanics of this lawsuit, because from what I understand, suing for defamation when you are as globally famous as Tyra Banks is incredibly difficult.
Oh, it's notoriously difficult. As a public figure, she has to prove what the courts call actual malice. It's this very high legal bar established by the Supreme Court. She doesn't just have to prove the documentary was false.
Right.
She has to prove that Netflix and the producers knew it was false when they published it, or that they acted with a reckless disregard for the truth.
I love analogies, so let me try one here. Think of proving actual malice, like trying to prove what someone was thinking in a high-stakes poker game. It's not enough to prove they played a bad hand, or even one with cards they shouldn't have had. You have to prove they looked at the cards, knew they were cheating, and laid them down on the table anyway.
That is a perfect way to look at it, and that is exactly why the detail about the producers possessing the raw, unedited footage is the smoking gun of this lawsuit.
Because they had the tapes.
Exactly. Her lawyers are basically arguing, you had the tape showing Shandi asking the question first. You had the tape of Tyra nodding. You looked at the truth, knew the context, and actively chose to broadcast a lie. That is their argument for actual malice.
But wait, anyone who's ever been on television signs a release form. And usually those forms sign away your life, your image, everything. I thought those things were totally ironclad. How does she get around that?
Well, that is where the legal strategy becomes absolutely brilliant. Because actual malice is such a huge mountain to climb, her legal team added a breach of contract claim specifically based on that release form.
Oh, really? What did it say?
Before sitting down, Tyra signed a release, but it wasn't a standard document. It explicitly stated that the producers could not edit her material in a manner that constitutes defamation, nor could they alter the fundamental meaning of her words.
Oh, wow. So even if the defamation claim hits a hurdle, like if a judge says, well, it's hard to prove what they were thinking, she can pivot and say, you broke the literal contract we signed when you chopped up my sentences.
Precisely. It is a backdoor to victory. And there is a third major claim, too, under the Lanham Act, which deals with false endorsement and trademark law. This involves Netflix Music releasing a 26-track soundtrack album for the docuseries.
Let me guess. They put her face right on the cover to sell the album.
You guessed it. They used Tyra's image prominently on the album cover. And according to her complaint, her contract expressly forbade using her image for any commercial merchandising or tie-ins without her prior written consent.
Which she never gave.
Exactly. And the Lanham Act claim is so powerful because it doesn't require proving actual malice at all. It just requires proving that they used her trademarked likeness to sell a product without permission, tricking consumers into thinking she endorsed it.
It's just layer upon layer of legal maneuvering. It's honestly fascinating, and we really need to emphasize that this isn't happening in a vacuum. The Fordham Law Journal article in our sources provides some incredible context here.
Yeah, that article was so eye-opening.
I want to introduce a term for this, the true crimification of pop culture. This Tyra Banks lawsuit is part of a massive industry-wide trend. Streamers are facing an absolute wave of lawsuits over these docudramas.
We are witnessing a massive paradigm shift. The Fordham Law Journal specifically notes recent high-profile legal battles like the lawsuits against Netflix over Baby Reindeer and Inventing Anna.
Right. For a long time, filmmakers relied heavily on artistic license. But streamers are now aggressively prioritizing sensationalized true content because that is what drives algorithmic engagement.
They just slap a true story or documentary label on it because the algorithm knows that's what gets people to click. They use the aesthetics of journalism, the serious music, the dramatic lighting, the archival footage to mask what is essentially highly dramatized fiction.
And the courts are starting to catch on, because these projects are labeled as factual documentaries rather than obvious fiction, judges are taking these defamation claims much more seriously.
Because the audience expectation is different. When you watch a documentary, you expect a degree of journalistic integrity. You expect facts.
Yeah.
If the creators are manipulating timelines and selectively editing quotes to invent a villain, they are increasingly running afoul of the law.
And Tyra isn't standing alone in this fight either. It's not just an isolated celebrity throwing a tantrum. She has powerful allies from the show backing her up. Kelly Cutrone, the notoriously fierce PR maven and former judge, publicly stated that 80% of the docuseries is incredibly twisted.
Yeah, and Jesslyn Gonzalez, the winner of Cycle 8, came out expressing unwavering gratitude for how Tyra transformed her life. This lawsuit really feels like a highly calculated strike against this growing trend of treating real people's lives as raw material for sensational streaming content.
The broader implications are staggering when you think about it. The tension between compelling storytelling and factual accuracy has always existed. But when global streaming platforms have the power to broadcast a highly edited narrative to hundreds of millions of people instantly, the potential for reputational damage is unprecedented.
Tyra's lawsuit is essentially challenging the legal limits of the editing room. It is asking the courts to define where a filmmaker's right to tell a story ends and a subject's right to the truth begins.
It really makes you rethink everything you watch. As consumers of true crime series and behind-the-scenes documentaries, we inherently trust that documentary label. We assume we are getting the truth, or at least like a fair version of it.
But if human editors can surgically alter a 3.5-hour interview to ruin a legacy today, it brings up a really terrifying thought for tomorrow.
Exactly. What happens when these streaming giants start using AI to automatically generate the most dramatic edit possible based purely on user engagement algorithms? If reality TV was an illusion 20 years ago, AI-driven documentaries might just be an inescapable trap. Definitely something to think about the next time you hit play.
Totally.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.